Very good morning, dear students. Welcome back. This video is for class 10th, subject science, chapter number 13, lecture number 10. And in this video lecture, we are going to solve the NCERT exercise questions. So this is NCERT solutions video. So dear students, before starting with the exercise questions, we are only left with the 3 in-text questions because rest of the questions that we have done while having the lectures. So the in-text question at the page number 238 is: name 2 safety measures commonly used in electric circuits and appliances. So what are the 2 safety measures that we are using commonly in the electric circuits and appliances? So what are these 2? So yes, for sure, one is electric fuse and the second is earthing, through which we safeguard our electrical appliances and circuits. What the fuse does? Because fuse is having a property of high resistance and low melting point, because of which when the current exceeds a certain limit, the fuse wire, which is very thin, gets melt and it breaks the circuit, and this is how it safeguards the electric circuits. Earthing is a process in which a wire is used, or a copper wire is connected with the metallic body of the appliances, and this wire is buried in the earth deeply. Generally, copper wire is used for this purpose. This wire is generally having a green insulation on this. And earthing is specially used for the appliances which are having metallic bodies. And how it helps us, that let us suppose that the live wire, which is having an insulation of red color, that gets damaged, that insulation cover gets damaged. So in that case, the charge will pass to the metallic body, because if it is in contact with the live wire, then it will acquire the charge. And if someone touches the electrical appliances like fridge barefoot, then he or she gets shocked. So that is why, to avoid these situations, we earth the metallic bodies of the appliances to the earth, so that maximum or excess amount of charge can be transferred to the earth. The second question is: an electric oven of 2 kilowatt power rating is operated in a domestic electric circuit of 220 volt power supply, voltage supply, that has a current rating 5 ampere. Then what result do you expect and why? And you have to explain the answer. So dear students, if we write the solution of this question, then we have been given power, potential difference and the current. Power is given as 2 kilowatt, potential is given as 220 volts, current is given as 5 ampere, and we have been asked to find the current drawn by the electric oven. So we have to find out the current drawn by the electric oven. So let's say it is I/O. So let us see the solution now. So here we have been given the power in kilowatt and the potential difference is given in volts. So let us convert the power into watt first. So when we convert it, so we can multiply it with 1000 and we will get 2000 watt. So power is in standard units now. V is 220 volts. Then current drawn by the oven will be actually we have P, that is power, as equal to V into I. So from here we can calculate the current. So I will be P upon V, and we can calculate it as 2000 upon 22. So you will get it a value 9.09 amperes. So this is your answer. Question number 3 is, what precaution should be taken to avoid the overloading of domestic electric circuits? So dear students, we know that why overloading happens. When more number of electrical appliances they are run at the same time, then what happens? They all are drawing the current according to their own needs. So the wires, they get heat up, because of which the insulation cover gets damaged and it comes in the contact of the neutral wire. And when it comes in the contact of neutral wire, then the potential difference between them becomes zero, and hence a large amount of current is flown through the circuit. So because of that large amount of current flowing through the circuit, high heat is generated, because of which the wires can also get fired. So what precautions we should take? The precautions to be taken are that we should not run too many appliances at a time. We should not join the faulty appliances in the connections. We should always use a fuse in the circuits. We should use the wires of good insulation quality in the household wiring. And we should turn off the appliances when they are not in use. So all these precautions we can take while using the electrical appliances to save them. Now let us begin with the exercise, and question number 1 is a multiple choice question. And question is, which of the following correctly describes the magnetic field near a long straight wire? Option A is, the field consists of straight lines perpendicular to the wire. No. B, the field consists of straight lines parallel to the wire. It's again a no. C, the field consists of radial lines originating from the wire. Again a no. And the last option is that field consists of concentric circles centered on the wire. Because we know that when current flows in a straight conductor, then the magnetic field produced around the conductor is in the form of concentric circles having the conductor as the center. So option B is the correct answer. Question number 2 is again a multiple choice question, and the question is that the phenomena of electromagnetic induction is A, a process of charging a body, B, process of generating magnetic field due to a current passing through a coil, C, producing induced current in a coil due to relative motion between a magnet and the coil, D, the process of rotating a coil in an electric motor. So just pause the video and think of that which option is the best. If you have paused and thought of the answer, then what is the answer according to you? That electromagnetic induction is the process of inducing current in the coil due to the relative motion between the magnet and the coil. So option C is the correct answer. I hope you all have thought of the correct answer only. Question number 3 is, a device used for producing electric current is called generator, galvanometer, ammeter or motor. So dear students, motor is a rotating device which converts the electrical energy into mechanical energy. Ammeter is the instrument or the device used to measure the electric current. Galvanometer is a measuring device used to detect the current in the circuit. And generator is the one which is used to produce electric current. So generator, that is option A, is the correct answer. Question number 4 is, The essential difference between an AC generator and a DC generator is that option A is AC generator has an electromagnet while a DC generator has the permanent magnet. So no, it's not true because there is no difference of the magnets. B, DC generator will generate a higher voltage. No, it's not true. Because the voltage generated depends on the amount of the force generated, or you can see the what kind of or what is the amount of the current generated or induced in the circuit. Option C is AC will generate a higher voltage. No. Option D is AC generator has slip rings while the DC generator has a commutator. Commutator means split rings. So yes, D is the correct answer because AC generator is having the slip rings which do not reverse the direction where the S1, S2 are the slip rings, remember, which were throughout the working of the AC generator, they were connected with the brushes B1, B2 respectively. So the connections were not changing. That is why the direction of the current was not reversing. And here in the case of DC generator, we have the commutator, that is split ring type of commutator, where one ring is converted into two half split rings so that the direction of the current after each half revolution can be reversed. So option D is the correct answer. Question 5 is, at the time of short circuit, the current in the circuit A reduces substantially, B does not change, C increases heavily, D varies continuously. So option C is the correct answer. And why? Because when the short circuit happens, so we have the two wires, live and neutral. So short circuit happens when the live and neutral wires, they come in contact because of the damage of the insulation cover of the live wire, because of which the potential difference becomes zero between the two. Earlier it was 220 volts. When the potential difference becomes zero, then according to Ohm's law, we have the condition IR is zero. That means resistance is zero and the current becomes infinite. So increase heavily, the current increases heavily when short circuit happens. So option D is the correct, C is the correct answer. Question 6 is, state whether the following statements are true or false. Statement A is, an electric motor converts mechanical energy into electric energy. It's false because an electric motor converts electrical energy into mechanical one and not mechanical into electrical one. Statement B is, an electric generator works on the principle of electromagnetic induction. This is true because an electric generator works on the basis of electromagnetic induction, because of which we induce the current or we produce the current with the help of motion or force applied. Statement C is, the field at the center of a long circular coil carrying current will be parallel straight lines. So yes, it's true. Why? Because a long circular coil is what? A solenoid. And we have studied that inside the solenoid or at the center of the long circular coil or solenoid, the magnetic field is uniform. That means the magnetic field lines will be parallel to each other. That is why this is also true. Then statement D is, a wire with green insulation is usually the live wire of an electric supply. It's false because live wire is of red color insulation and the green insulation is for earthing wire. So dear students, two methods of producing magnetic field. One can be using a permanent magnet. Second can be with the help of a current carrying conductor. Because we know that current carrying conductor also produces magnetic field around it. So using permanent magnets or a current carrying conductor, we can produce magnetic field. Question number 8 is, how does a solenoid behave like a magnet? Can you determine the north and the south poles of a current carrying solenoid with the help of a bar magnet? Explain. So the first thing that we have to tell is, how does a solenoid behave like a magnet? So the first thing is that solenoid is when an insulated copper wire is wound up in the form of a long cylindrical conductor and the current is passed through it with the help of a battery. Then it produces magnetic field around it. And how this magnetic field is produced around it? That when we apply the clockwise rule to both the faces of the solenoid, we find that the face where the current is flowing anti-clockwise direction, that face is behaving as the north pole. So here the current is flowing clockwise, so this will behave as the south pole and this will behave as the north pole of a magnet. And the magnetic field lines produced inside the solenoid will look like that. They will enter the south pole of the magnet, exit from the north pole of the magnet, and they travel parallelly inside the solenoid. So the magnetic field inside a solenoid is uniform, but outside it is non-uniform. So yes, there is a similarity between the magnetic field of a solenoid and the bar magnet. So yes, we can say that solenoid behaves as a bar magnet. Now here, the second part of the question is saying that can you determine the north and south pole? That how we can say which pole is the south and which pole is the north pole, not by seeing the terminals of the battery or the flow of the direction of the current. We have to use a bar magnet for this purpose. So one property of the magnets we know very well, that like poles repel and unlike poles attract. So this property we can use to find out to identify the poles of the solenoid. Suppose we have a bar magnet which is having a north and south pole. If we bring the north pole of the bar magnet towards this end and there is a force of attraction between the two ends, solenoid and the bar magnet. If there is attraction, then it must be the different pole or unlike pole. If this is not, then for sure this will be the south. And if we bring the north pole towards this end and there is a repulsion between the two, then for sure this is also the north pole of the magnetic solenoid, because like poles only can repel each other. Question number 9 is, when is the force experienced by a current carrying conductor placed in a magnetic field is largest? So we know that the force experienced depends on the magnetic field around the conductor and the current flowing in the conductor. But we know very well that the force is maximum when the current in the conductor is perpendicular to the magnetic field, because this we have seen with the help of Fleming's left hand rule. So we have seen that when the magnetic field, or when we stretch our left hand in such a way that our first finger represents the magnetic field, central finger gives the current, then the force is given by the thumb. So here all these are mutually perpendicular, and the force will be maximum when the magnetic field is perpendicular to the current flowing in the conductor. So when current flowing in the conductor is perpendicular to the magnetic field, then the force experienced will be the largest. Then question number 10 is, imagine that you are sitting in a chamber with your back to one wall. An electron beam moving horizontally from the back wall towards the front wall is deflected by the strong magnetic field to your right side. Then what is the direction of the magnetic field? So here what is given, that we are in a chamber sitting by keeping our back with one of the walls. So we are facing this side, and it has been asked that electron is coming from the back of our side and it is going towards the front wall of ours. So dear students, when electron is moving in this direction, then for sure the current flowing will be in this direction, that is from the front wall towards us. Then it has been asked that electron is getting deflected towards our right. So if we apply the Fleming's left hand rule to it, then first we have been given two things, because we have to find out the direction of the magnetic field. But we have given the direction of the current and the force. So the direction of the current is, so dear students, just try to see it clearly, that direction of the current is this. Electron is deflected towards our right. So this, my first finger is deflecting or indicating towards the downward. So magnetic field direction will be downward. Number 12 is, name some devices in which electric motor are used. So these electric devices can be electric fans, electric mixers and washing machines. Question number 13 is, a coil of insulated copper wire is connected to a galvanometer. What will happen if a bar magnet A is pushed into the coil, B withdrawn from the inside, third held stationary inside the coil? So dear students, the first thing is that when the coil of copper is connected with a galvanometer and there is no current. So the first situation is when no current is flowing in the galvanometer. Then the no current is flowing in the coil. Then no deflection will be shown by the galvanometer, as there is no current flowing, and the galvanometer is a device which detects the current in the circuit. So the pointer will remain at 0 if no current is flowing through it. It can show deflection either to the left or to the right depending upon the direction of a current. So the process of producing induced current in the coil due to the relative motion between the magnet and the coil, this process is known as electromagnetic induction. So electromagnetic induction will take place and the induced current will be there if a bar magnet is moved away or towards the coil. So let us see how the deflections will be there. So the first thing is that when we are having a coil and we are having a bar magnet which is having north and south pole. So now there is no current in the circuit, but when we move the north pole of the bar magnet towards the coil, then the magnetic field lines which are moving from the north pole of the bar magnet, they are entering or they are coming closer to the coil. So when it is happening, a momentary deflection will be there in the galvanometer, either towards the right or towards the left. And when we are taking it away, then again the number of magnetic field lines passing through this coil will change. Then also the galvanometer will show deflection, but now in opposite direction. Now, with the help of moving the bar magnet near or away from the coil, we are inducing the potential difference in the coil, which causes the current to get induced. So that is why there is a flow of charge because of the potential difference developed. And if a bar magnet is kept inside a current carrying a coil which is not having current but connected with the galvanometer, then there will be no deflections in the galvanometer. So for the third case, there will be no deflections, as the stationary magnetic field do not induce the current in the circuit. Only changing or varying magnetic field can cause the production of potential difference, which will make the charges flow in the wire. Question number 14 is, two circular coils AB are placed close to each other. If the current in the coil A is changed, will some current will be induced in the coil B? Give reasons. So it has been given in the question that we have two coils, a coil A and a coil B. So let's say this is A and B. So it is saying that if the current in the coil A is changed, that means this is connected with the battery and we are changing the current in the coil A. So if this is connected with the galvanometer, so this is the phenomena of electromagnetic induction, that with the help of one coil which is having current flowing in it, we induce the current in the another coil placed near it. So when we are increasing the current or decreasing the current in coil A, then the magnetic field associated with the coil A is changing, which is also related with the coil B, because we know that a current carrying wire or a conductor is always having a magnetic field around it. So there must be the magnetic field lines in coil A, this way. And when we are increasing or decreasing the current in the coil A, then the strength of the magnetic field will also vary. And to induce the current in the another coil, we want a changing magnetic field, which is getting fulfilled with the help of increasing or decreasing the current in the coil A. So yes, there will be some current induced in the coil B because the magnetic field associated with the coil A is varying. Question number 15 is, state the rule to determine the direction of A. magnetic field produced around a straight conductor carrying current, B. second, force experienced by a current carrying straight conductor placed in a magnetic field which is perpendicular to it, and third, current induced in a coil due to its rotation in the magnetic field. So let us answer this question. In the first case, we have been asked, state the rule to determine the direction of the magnetic field produced around a straight current carrying conductor. So let's say this is the straight current carrying conductor. And the rule to determine the direction of the magnetic field produced around it is the right hand thumb rule, according to which if we put our right hand in such a way that the thumb is pointing the direction of the current, then the curls of the fingers will give the direction of the magnetic field. So, according to the curls of our fingers, concentric circles or the magnetic field will get produced around the conductor in the form of concentric circles. Having conductor as the center of the concentric circles. The second case is the force experienced by a current carrying straight conductor placed in the magnetic field due to a field which is perpendicular to it. So dear students, we have to find out the direction of the force experienced when the current conductor is placed perpendicular to the magnetic field. So let's say if this is the direction of the current and the field is perpendicular to it. So the rule to determine the direction of the force on the conductor is Fleming's left hand rule. And according to this rule, we have to stretch our left hand in such a way that our thumb, first finger and the middle finger are mutually perpendicular to each other. If the central finger is indicating the direction of the current, which is perpendicular to the direction of the magnetic field indicated by the first finger, then the thumb will give the direction of the force exerted on the conductor. Fleming's left hand rule is used to find the direction of the force experienced by a current carrying straight conductor placed in a magnetic field. Then the third part is current induced in a coil due to its rotation in the magnetic field. So dear students, when a conductor is moved in a magnetic field, then there is a current induced in that coil. And the rule to find the direction of the induced current is Fleming's right hand rule. So for the third case, the rule applied is Fleming's right hand rule. And according to this rule, we have to stretch our right hand in such a manner that our thumb, first finger and the central finger are mutually perpendicular to each other. When the thumb is indicating the direction of the motion and the first finger is giving the direction of the magnetic field, then our central finger will give the direction of the induced current in the coil. So Fleming's right hand rule is used to find the direction of the induced current in the circuit. Question number 17 is, when does an electric short circuit occur? So dear students, we know that short circuit occurs when we have the two wires, live and neutral, and the live wires insulation cover gets damaged. And now this is open. So that live wire comes in the contact of the neutral wire and the potential difference, which was earlier 220 volt between them, now becomes 0. So according to Ohm's law, we have V is equals to IR. So when V becomes 0, we have the IR is equal to 0. So this means R is equal to 0 by I. So this gives the value R is 0, and when the resistance is 0, then the current increases infinitely. So the value of current is infinite now. So there is a heavy increase or sudden increase in the amount of current, because of which a large amount of heat is developed in the wires that can cause the fire in the wires, or the appliances can get damaged. This happens either when the insulation cover is getting damaged, or we are using a large number of electrical appliances at the same time, which causes the overloading and overheating of the wires. Then the next question is, What is the function of an earth wire? Why is it necessary to earth the metallic appliances? So dear students, we know that from the mains 3 wires are coming: live, neutral and the earthing wire. So these 2 wires, they provide the potential difference so that the current can flow in the circuit. But we have many of the appliances of metallic body in our houses. So when the neutral wire, the live wire insulation cover gets damaged, then that live wire can come in the contact of the metallic body of the appliance and can transfer its charge to the metallic body of the appliance. If some person touch that appliance barefoot, then he or she can get electric shock, which can be very hazardous. So to avoid that situation, what we do, we connect the metallic body of the appliance with a copper wire, and that copper wire is buried in the earth. So whenever this happens, that charge transfer from the live wire to the metallic body, then this charge is taken up by the copper wire, and this excess amount of charge goes to the earth. So this is what we do, that the function of the earth wire is to protect the electrical appliances as well as the person who are touching the electrical appliances from getting shocked. So it is necessary to earth the metallic appliances so that we can safeguard ourselves. And this is the symbol of the earthing. So this is it for today. In the next lecture, we'll discuss the assignment solutions of this chapter. So till then, take care and goodbye.